Chapter 4. The evaluator's office was just outside their small town. It was a huge building, dark and foreboding, and it took everything in Casey to strengthen her shoulders and walk toward the big glass door. Soldiers dressed in military fatigues and carrying rifles eyed her as she passed them. She pasted on a smile and tried to carry herself as if she wasn't counting each step. The women accepted seemed to be young and in good health, so that's exactly how I need to present myself. When she got to the door, she pulled a handkerchief from her pocket and pushed it open. She tried not to imagine the germs crawling from the cloth, making their way to her skin, but the image haunted her. There was another security desk at the front. She had to leave her coat and place all her important items on the belt. Inside, she saw the line of women. I just need to go stand with them. Fear and anxiety filled the air as they chatted with one another. Too bright, too loud, too dirty, too crowded. She panted, sucking in breaths as her vision spun. Hold it together. Just then, chaos erupted behind her. She spun around as 4 soldiers dragged a tall brunette woman into the facility. What the? The brunette swore in Spanish, struggling in their arms as she kicked and punched. Several of her blows landed, causing the soldiers to curse. The soldiers' gazes held barely contained rage. If she keeps it up, they're going to hurt her. Worry made Casey freeze in shock. But then they were coming right at her. She jumped out of the way. The woman caught her eye, and the fear and desperation in her expression took Casey's breath away. They took the struggling brunette to the end of the line. She struck one man in the face, and he drew his arm back, mouth twisted in anger. Stop! All eyes were on Casey before she'd known she'd spoken. Just stop, she begged. The brunette's long hair was a messy curtain in front of her face, just one big eye peeking out. The way she held herself and the rapid rise and fall of her chest told Casey the woman was nowhere near done fighting. But she needs to stop. They'll hurt her. Why aren't any of the other women trying to help? Every one of them stood with their backs straight turned, looking straight ahead, as if pretending not to see it means that it isn't happening. One of the soldiers leaned in and spoke nearly into the woman's ear. Instantly she stilled. The men released her, hovering close, but all the fight was gone from her eyes. Casey's heart pounded as she moved to stand behind the woman. I want to comfort her. I want to offer her comfort, but what could I possibly say? The soldiers around them slowly moved away till they were positioned at the exits. The brunette turned with a smile that wavered. Her hands shook as they moved to fix her tangled hair. Thanks for stopping that asshole. My name is Catalina. The words rolled off her tongue. It's been so long since I talked to a person beside my sister. She'll see right through me to the virus. Meet her eyes. Choose your words with care. What just happened? The woman raised both brows, looking surprised by her bluntness. I didn't want to be drafted. I don't think you're alone in that. But there must be more to it. Catalina gave a laugh that held only a slight edge of anger. True enough, I didn't catch your name. Casey. She forced the word out past her dry lips. Well, straight to the point, Casey. Catalina leaned in and opened the collar of her red shirt ever so slightly. Casey caught a flash of silver. I have a plan to get out of here. You in? Is that a knife? She shook her head slowly. Catalina leaned away, the sharp lines of her face growing sharper. What? You one of those crazies hoping to be beamed up and find something better? No, You trying to get out of jail time? No. Then why the hell wouldn't you jump at a chance to escape? Casey swallowed. Should I be honest? Because I'm taking someone's place. Who? My sister. The woman's whole demeanor changed, her anger fading into something closer to sympathy. Then she nodded, slight wrinkles gathering at the corners of her full lips. It shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't have to throw away your life to save someone you love. I don't want to think about that. Can I ask you something? Her eyes became guarded. Shoot. What did they say to get you to calm down? Catalina was quiet for so long Casey thought she'd never answer. But then, at last she did, her words coming out soft but certain. My grandfather molested me as a kid, but then he moved away. When I left home, I made my mom promise to keep him away from my little sister, but she didn't. Anger flashed across her face once more. I tried everything I could to help her, but finally I just shot the bastard. Saying she didn't answer my question doesn't seem appropriate. I'm sorry, was all she could manage. The woman shrugged. I'm glad I killed him, but I didn't expect to be dragged here for testing. I did what I did knowing I'd spend a long time in prison, but I didn't sign on for a death sentence. She took a deep breath, something unreadable flashing in her eyes. But they reminded me that they could always take my older cousin in my place, and nothing means more to me than family. They threatened her? What despicable pieces of garbage. I'm sorry. The words felt inadequate, but they were all she had. Catalina stared expectantly. Most people have a different reaction to learning I killed someone. Most people think every life has value. She spoke without thinking, but once the words had left her mouth, she wished she could take them back. Oh. The woman's eyes widened. I get it now. You volunteered for a reason then. No judgment. She thinks I want to die. How can she possibly understand how much I want to live? If I had any chance at living a normal life, of having a husband, having children, I wouldn't be in this line. The woman's face suddenly looked younger under her heavy makeup. Okay, I believe you. For some reason, Casey felt as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. I'm giving my life, not taking it. The line moved slowly over the next hour, but she finally found herself standing in front of 2 massive metal doors with guards on either side. When it was Catalina's turn to enter, the woman looked back over her shoulder and patted the spot where the knife was concealed, then entered without looking back. Time seemed to crawl as Casey counted her breaths. This time when the doors opened, her legs shook. It's my turn, and it doesn't sound like Catalina has caused any trouble. Yet. A small man in a military uniform led her through 3 more sets of metal doors, each guarded, before she stepped into the dome that housed what appeared to be an alien-looking craft. This is it. They went straight to the ship and stopped just in front of it. It was about twice as wide as an SUV, but far shorter, slightly taller than her waist, all black, round in the middle, and a sharp nose in the front. There was a sleekness to it that gave it an air of mystery. Any time now, Blondie. The little man pointed at the ship. She narrowed her eyes. And what exactly would you like me to do? His mouth pulled into a thin line. What do you think? Climb in. See if it responds to you. This must be the test. Taking a deep breath, she drew her shoulders back, then took 2 more breaths, then walked towards the ship. When she reached the side, she saw the glass top had been pulled back to reveal a small area filled with a dashboard covered in buttons. It was a small space, obviously meant for one person. She'd never been claustrophobic, but her anxiety screamed to life. A guard reached for her hand to help her board. She shifted away from his touch, fighting her brain's desperate screams to run from the small, dark, germ-filled space. When she finally lowered herself into the ship, she was slick with sweat. She clenched and unclenched her hands as nervous energy coursed through her. Staring at the dials, she wondered how she was supposed to fly it, and then a dark thought slid through her mind. This is the moment. If you aren't chosen, you will lose the opportunity to die with dignity, to help your people, to help your sister. You must be chosen. The guard leaned over her. Place your hand on the disc. She looked up to meet his eyes, but instead his gaze was running over her. Something uncomfortable flipped in her stomach. Why is he looking at me like that? The little man in the military outfit suddenly appeared next to the guard. On with it now! We've still got a line out the damn door, and we've only found 1 match all morning. With one hand tapping her leg, tap, 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 pause. Tap, tap, tap. She reached her other hand out and placed it on the silver disc, straps wrapped around her hand like the tentacles of an octopus. She gasped in shock and fear as she tried to pull her hand free. A second later, however, pain radiated through her palm. Red blood leaked from beneath her hand onto the disc. This isn't right. This shouldn't be happening. Something's wrong. The world faded to nothing. Instead, she saw a strange and beautiful man sitting at a desk. He was covered in tattoos, curving black shapes that seemed out of place on a face that was so stunning it took her breath away. Looking up, his pale green eyes widened in surprise. His lips moved, but she couldn't hear any sound. She moved closer to him, wanting to run her hands along the hard lines of his body, to tangle her fingers through his long blonde hair. Never before had she seen someone who should frighten her, but instead aroused and intrigued her. His gaze promised her, "I will protect you always." Closing her eyes, she willed herself into the safety of his arms. "Command it!" someone shouted. Her eyes flashed open, and reality came back like a bucket of cold water. Her vision, the feeling of being safe, disappeared in the harsh lights of the military building. "Command?" she murmured. "Tell it to fly!" the military man shouted in annoyance. Feeling uncertain, she did as he told her. To her shock, the dashboard lit up and the craft slowly rose from the ground. The two men near the ship stumbled back as the ship rose higher and higher. She looked down into the room below. The scientists, guards, and military men working around the edges of the room paused in their tasks and stared up at her. "Now what?" "Okay," the little military man said, excitement in his voice. "Just imagine gently landing back down." It can't really be that easy, can it? But she did as he said anyway. Very slowly, the craft landed. The man and the guard were immediately at her side. "Congratulations," the little man said, smiling for the first time. "You've got what it takes to fly one of the alien ships, pilot, which means you've just officially been accepted into the Star Squad." He pulled something from his pocket and pressed it onto the back of her hand. She looked down. 9,847. I guess this means I'm in. So what now? Fear crept through her veins, but even as it did, she remembered the face of the man from her vision, and although she knew he wasn't real, the thought of him calmed her in a way nothing else had for a very long time. She tried to imagine him just as he was in her mind, but somehow she could already feel him slipping away. If only. But she already knew, even if the man with the kind eyes existed, he couldn't help her now. No one could.